Hello, this is Mongo Slade, and we're going to do our Hell in a Cell predictions. Before we get into the predictions, let's talk about the cell for a minute. I'm not a fan. The big red box, not a fan. Not a fan. It is distracting. I already have visual problems. I don't need this big red monstrosity hanging overhead, just looming over everybody, obstructing my vision. I cannot stand that cell. I have not rewatched a single Hell in a Cell match that has taken place inside that red cell. I have not. So when people are like, "Oh, Bayley and Becky Lynch," it was not Bayley, Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch, it was so good. I'm like, I didn't. I watched it once. I'm not going to volunteer to stare at this red box all day. Like, no, I'm not about to do that again. Maybe I need to. Maybe I need to suck it up and accept that the cell is red. But no, I'm going to fight it. I should start a change.org petition. If we're going to be honest, that's what I should do. Change.org, get rid of the red cell. But this show has 5 matches, which is fine. It's a good structure. Hell in a Cell singles match, Hell in a Cell singles match. I'm cool with that. So let's get into the opening match. I think the opening match will probably be a Hell in a Cell match, but the first match listed on the website is Otis versus The Miz for the Money in the Bank contract. And not a fan of how we got here. It was stupid. The Law and Otis segment was stupid. I didn't like it. I can deal with stupid, but it wasn't stupid in a way that I enjoy. The Miz has no momentum. Miz has no credibility. He just doesn't. He just exists on the card. This feud with him and Otis has gone on too long. But this is what I think you should do, and feel me on this. I think Otis should lose, and the Money in the Bank should go to the Miz. Period. This is why. Otis, he was at his height in February when he was a sympathetic babyface. He had got his heart broken. He was, fighting hard from behind. He was, the unlikely hero. But since then, not only did, the pandemic kill his babyface push, and just imagine how hot people would have been for Otis in June had he maintained his momentum and people hadn't gotten sick of him by then. When he won the Money in the Bank, people would have been really happy. But I think that he has been derailed because he is overachieving. Otis is winning every match now. He has never lost to The Miz. He has never been beaten by John Morrison or The Miz. They're not, portraying that him winning the Money in the Bank was any sort of fluke. They're saying that Otis was legit. That was one of the first things that came out after, he won the Money in the Bank. He's talking about how he was a wrestler or a power lifter or something like that in high school or college. So they're trying to go this real route with Otis. But he's still a sympathetic babyface at heart. He's a big goof. So what you do is you screw him. You recreate the sympathy. Otis has got the girl. He's got the title shot. He's riding high. It's the perfect time to snatch it all away. Rip the rug right from up under him. But you can then rebuild him. Because the Money in the Bank is not just a Money in the Bank. It's a title shot. You can always get Otis another title shot. You can just tell the story of Otis fighting and scratching from the bottom, trying to, win the Intercontinental Championship, or doing what Jey Uso did, that's winning like a battle royal or a short tournament or a 6-pack challenge or something like that to become the number 1 contender. So even if he lost his Money in the Bank, he gets another, he fights and scratches to get another chance. And it fits the heavy machinery gimmick. Heavy machinery is all about construction, building yourself, being blue collar, working. The Money in the Bank is not really the way a guy like Otis should get to that spot anyway. I think that, having him win the match wasn't really the bad idea. I'm not one of those people that hate Otis. I don't think that Otis winning the Money in the Bank was stupid. Otis isn't over. Otis is silly. It's like, yeah, Otis is silly, but he's also over. And they wanted to try to make a new star. I'm not going to begrudge the company for trying to make a new star. But what I have going to begrudge the company for is letting him become stale. And I think that since Otis has been alienated from the rest of his crew, like Tucker and Mandy, he needs to rebuild himself. He needs to assert himself as a single star, much like Big E. And what that means is we have to separate him completely from everything and make him start from the bottom. And I think that's a good way to get the people behind Otis again and stop with people who are sort of tired of the comedy and tired of all that type of stuff, you take him seriously, Well, even if he loses the Money in the Bank, he could always win the Intercontinental Championship from Sami Zayn or something like that, because Sami needs opponents. SmackDown does not have any strong baby faces. There's no reason to, other than Big E and Otis. So you really can't just sacrifice Otis. You gotta screw him. Miz and Morrison work together to outsmart him. Miz wins the title. Miz wins the Money in the Bank. The Money in the Bank goes to Raw. And, poor Otis. And that really gets people sympathetic to him again. Some people will be ecstatic because they didn't like Otis anyway. But a lot of normal people would be like, man, he fought so hard for that. And he just waited too long. If he'd have just cashed it in immediately, then it wouldn't have been, that big of a... Besides, if we're being honest, I don't think Otis will win the title anyway. So I think you'll probably do better by trying to make him a star, by trying to build him up, by having him win matches and, become solidified as a solo act. So I'm going to go with The Miz. The Miz should win. Now, what you should do with The Miz with the Money in the Bank is simple. He tries to cash it in immediately, as soon as possible. He tries to cash it in. So, it just fits the Miz's character, But we'll get there. So the second match is Jeff Hardy versus Elias. I'm not thrilled about this match, if we're being honest. This is a Raw TV match. Elias is just not that good. Okay, I like Elias as a character, as a performer. I believed in him before anybody else did, because I thought he had an interesting gimmick, he had an interesting look. He's just not a great worker. And Jeff Hardy can do wonders with people. I'm not so sure how he could do with Elias. Now, Elias isn't god-awful the worst worker in the world, but you need to be pretty fucking good. You need to be a slightly higher level performer than Jeff Hardy to be able to carry Elias to a great match. You could probably carry Elias to a good one, but it's going to have to be short, 5 or 6 minutes, I think Elias just has too much bulk on his body. Maybe he's just got too much muscle. He kind of needs to slim down a little bit. But I fully expect Jeff Hardy to win this match because I don't see any reason for Elias to win. I know Elias is embittered. I know Elias is angry, but Elias is still the same Elias. They haven't changed his character at all. They haven't made him darker, more sinister or nothing like that. So there's no reason to believe that Elias is going to magically, unless he cheats, of course. There's really no reason to believe that he's going to beat Jeff Hardy. So the SmackDown Women's Championship, Bayley versus Sasha Banks, Hell in a Cell. Now, I've been saying up to this point that it would make sense for Bayley to win and then for Sasha Banks to challenge Bayley again at WrestleMania after winning the Royal Rumble. But since that's not going to happen because they're both on the same brand, they're stuck on the same brand, I think that you're probably still going to have to go with Bayley winning. And I know that kind of puts Sasha Banks in a weird space that, they've been building up for Sasha Banks to win the match. But I think that when you have Bianca Belair right there in the rearview mirror, that's the better move. I mean, Sasha Banks is already a star. Yes, Sasha Banks winning the championship is a big deal, but I think that having Bianca Belair right there is like, what do you do with her? Like, yes, you have, Selena Vega and you got Natalya and you got some people for her to bounce around. But I think ultimately, if Bayley been a champion for over a year, having Bayley lose the title to Sasha Banks is like, okay, but it's not the crowning achievement of Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks is already a star. But I think it could be the crowning achievement for Bianca Belair. If Sasha Banks wins, then what do we have? You have Bayley try to win it back? Then, okay, let's say Bayley wins it back. Or Bayley, they have to have another match. Then, that Survivor Series break in between. But, because I think they might end up doing Raw versus SmackDown again. Or maybe they just do traditional Survivor Series stuff. Which it still might be pretty cool. That might be a good way to, increase the stock of some of these new people, is to just do a traditional Survivor Series instead of doing brand versus brand, of doing intra-brand stuff. Maybe 5 from Raw, 5 from SmackDown, wrestling each other. You know, Roman Reigns leads a team, and you know he's forcing the Usos to be on his team or something like that, or Jey Uso rather. But you know, I don't know. But I think that ultimately everybody wants Sasha Banks to win because you know Bayley's been champion for a year, and yeah, this is what you've been fattening the cow up for. You know, you've been fattening the pig up for slaughter. That's how title changes work. If you fatten up the champion to get slayed, and Bayley's pretty fat as it is. Again, I'm not talking about her being fat, even though she is thick. But no, I don't really. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Bayley. I'm gonna go with the heartbreaker. I'm gonna go with Bayley. I think that Bayley wins this match, and I really don't like how we got here. I didn't like the contract signing segment. I think that Bayley should have been thrilled to sign the contract against Sasha Banks because Sasha Banks was injured. They were coming right off that injury angle. You could have just said, "Oh, I know your neck's not 100%, so you really don't want to do this Hell in a Cell thing." And then Sasha Banks was like, "Yes, I do." And then, you know, Bayley signs the contract, and then the Hell in a Cell match is the story of Sasha Banks' neck. You know, can her neck hang on? And it can't, and she loses. And I think that would have been a better story to tell. But, you know, we're beyond that point now. You know, maybe we'll go back to it, maybe not. But I think Bayley just wins. And then, you know, even though I think that there's probably more strength and, you know, there's really nowhere to go for either one of them, though. Because the company doesn't put any emphasis on any other woman. So if Sasha Banks wins, who is she going to wrestle? Bayley. That's it. If Bayley wins, at least you have if Bayley wins, Sasha Banks is out of the picture, seemingly. But you still have Bianca Belair right there. So you really don't have any options other than rematches in this situation because you haven't booked anybody else. You know, that sucks. That fucking sucks. But I'm going to go with Bayley. So, Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton, Hell in a Cell for the WWE Championship. I think this match opens the show. I think this is the first match on the show because this feud has lost a lot of steam. These guys have been fighting since August. And they fought essentially every week since August. And then the feud seemed to be definitively over after the ambulance match. But for some reason, it's still happening. So this is like a zombie feud, if we're being honest. It feels like this feud is over, but they won't let it end. You know, and I think it's really damaged Drew McIntyre, if we're being honest. You know, Drew was riding high, top babyface. Everybody enjoyed his work. Everybody liked him. But now he's been a hamster on a wheel. He's pretty much been saying, "Randy, I'm going to beat you up, Randy." And it's just been it. You know, "Randy, when I get my hands on you, I'm going to go to Hell in a Cell, Randy." And it's like, okay. You know, they've been fighting every week for 2 months. They've been fighting too much. They've been having too much contact. The ambulance match was not that good. It had a bunch of run-ins with nobody. I didn't like that shit. Drew McIntyre has lost a lot of steam. But I think that now smart money, which usually I try to be, would say switch the title here. Take the title off of Drew McIntyre, put it on Randy. Which is what I want, if we're being honest. But I also want The Miz to have the Money in the Bank. So what I think is Drew McIntyre beats Randy Orton in this match. And then maybe the next night on Raw, The Miz cashes in the Money in the Bank. And I think that's how you push the babyface into a hole. You make him sympathetic. It'll work. The Miz doesn't have any credibility as a champion anyway. He's a beatable champion, but he can talk. He can represent the company. He can do blah, 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 blah. And then it gives Drew McIntyre an opportunity to have somebody fresh to chase. And maybe you can even blame it on somebody else. But then you also, now this is the good thing, you still do have the Keith Lee waiting in the wings. Because even though Keith Lee lost to Braun Strowman cheated. And they'll probably force feed us a Braun Strowman Keith Lee match at this event too. Just to add another match. But then you also have, if Randy Orton is the champion, let's say you switch the titles, then you have the option of going with Keith Lee versus Randy Orton, which I think is superior. And I think that if Randy Orton wins the title, he's not going to be the champion long. He's not going to be the guy rolling into the Royal Rumble as the champion or rolling into to WrestleMania as the champion. I don't think so. If Randy wins the title, it's probably off of him at TLC or before. He's probably not going to be champion that long. So, but I think that smart money would say Drew McIntyre wins, and then we get The Miz taking the title from Drew McIntyre. But that's convoluted. People may say, oh, The Miz is the champion. What the hell? Or they may just say, put the title on Randy now. I would prefer if Randy just won and then, you rebuild a new face, or you go with the Randy Orton Keith Lee match, and either you give Randy his win back and now they're 1-1 against each other, and then you do a third match somewhere. But they've wrestled so much that I am kind of don't. But then they also did Keith Lee versus Drew McIntyre a bunch of times. But you do have options, because again, if Raw has more options than SmackDown, because if Drew McIntyre wins, then you also have Braun Strowman as a potential opponent. So you have some options there. But I think that Drew McIntyre winning is probably more likely, but I've probably switched my guess multiple times in this, just sitting here talking, because as I think of different options, I think of different ways that it could work. But I think that you have to take the title off of Drew McIntyre, because he kind of has been he's getting stale as the champion. This is a long run. Now remember, this is what happened with Shawn Michaels, right? He won the title at WrestleMania. By Survivor Series, people were sick of him. We got a similar situation here. It happened to Kofi too. Kofi won the title at WrestleMania. Around Survivor Series, Hell in a Cell, people started getting sick of him. That's about in a world of TV, 6 months is long enough for it to be the champion. If you're going to be on TV every week, especially if you're going to be having rematch after rematch, that's long enough. And they've exhausted a lot of these matches. Especially the Drew McIntyre, Keith Lee matches and the Drew McIntyre match. They've kind of exhausted them joints. So I think that you need to get the title off of Drew McIntyre, but if you don't want to put it on Randy, put it on The Miz. So I'm going to go with Drew McIntyre winning. That's it. That's my final. That's a period. Drew McIntyre is going to win, even though I would prefer Randy Orton won. So the main event of the show will undoubtedly be Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns, because this match has real weight behind it, and it's double gimmicked. So there's no chance of Jey Uso winning. Doing a prediction so where I could just say, oh, Jey Uso is going to win. It's like, duh. I mean, Jey Uso is going to lose. Of course not going to win. That Jey Uso is going to lose and say and submit. It's like, duh. You're not going to have your most dominant heel in a long, long time submit to, basically a pumped up tag team guy. Like they put some real steam behind Jey, but he's still a tag team wrestler. There's no reason to believe that he's going to, fly as a solo star, at least not yet, at least not right now. And I think that what we do in this situation is it's going to be an angle. It's obviously not going to be a whole match where, they're exchanging holds and everything. It's basically going to be a beating. Jay's going to get some hope spots, which he deserves. But, he's got the momentum going into the show, which almost guarantees that he's going to lose, by the way. Speaking of which, let me back up a little bit. Let's back up. Because I did not like the go-home show for Raw. I didn't like the go-home segment between Drew McIntyre and Roman and Randy Orton. I didn't like it. Because now I'm supposed to believe that these two guys locked each other into the cage, and they didn't fight, or they did fight, and I didn't get to see them fight. Either way, not a fan of that. But here Roman Reigns and Uso, they gave Uso the top spot 2 weeks in a row. He bumped Roman a bunch of times, knocked him down, splashed him, hit him with chairs, all type of shit. So Jey is definitely losing. And this match probably will not be long. It'll probably be 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's not going to be as long as their Night of Champions match, I don't believe. But it should be a little bit more creative. I'm really interested in what story they're going to tell. And that's where we are when we're going with this. We're not going for this match because who's going to win? Who's going to win? We already know who's going to win. It's all about how we're going to get there. How are we going to get Jey Uso to quit? And submit himself to Roman Reigns. This is going to be, like, it's bad enough that you have to say I quit, which is, it's a verbal submission. It's not like a tap out, like, oh, I'm hurt, my knee, I can't get out, blah, 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 blah. It is a verbal, I cannot fight anymore. I don't want to fight you anymore. I don't want anymore. It's a submission. So we have to see how we're going to get there. And, I'm not so sure there's going to be a move that's going to get us there, as much as it might be a moment. And I think it might involve Jimmy. Maybe you're going to have Roman put a chair on Jimmy's leg or something like that, and he's going to, hit Jimmy in the leg with a chair or something like that. Quote unquote, re-injure Jimmy. And, then Jey quits to save his brother, which would be fun. That would be really cool. And then, you got some heat for them later, that Jey ended up submitting. Because, part of the story is family, So you fold the family in since they're going to be involved. Fold the family in. If Jimmy's going to be there, do some things where Roman is basically threatening to hurt Jimmy unless Jey quits. Like physically he can't break Jey, but he could break Jey through Jimmy because Jimmy's already hurt. I think that'd be a sweet thing to do, And it obviously will. Jey being is, you have to still have to protect your baby faces, even if they're not going to be long term. You can protect Jey, and not have him completely go out there and look like shit. So protect him. Use Jimmy, use other pieces that you have to get Jey to say I quit. I keep saying Jimmy and Jey. I keep messing them up. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, tell people about the channel, and I'll talk to you guys later.